Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 5, and today we're taking a look at the 1974 Lancia Stratos HF Stradale. Now this was produced between 1973 and 1978, with only 492 being made, and it's a rear-wheel drive mid-engine sports car with a Ferrari engine, but despite all of that this was a highly successful rally car. It won the 1974, 1975 and 1976 World Rally Championships, and formidable on-road and off-road in both equal measures, quite frankly. So yeah, there were only 492 of these made for two reasons. One, it's a homologation version of the rally car, so you only have to produce so many cars to qualify for a World Rally Championship, and secondly, Ferrari would only supply so many engines for Lancia, as they were worried that this car would compete with its Dino, which is the same car that has which has the same engine as this car. And yeah, I can see why Ferrari would be worried, because not only does this look better than the Dino, it drives better, and yeah, has some race pedigree going behind it as well. But Ferrari really wouldn't have had anything to worry about, because obviously the Ferrari name is a lot more, has a lot more reputation going behind it. It's a lot more notable than Lancia, and as much as I love this car and don't really like the Dino at all, the Dino is definitely the more usable car on a day-to-day basis, because yeah, this has very little in the way of practicality, as you might expect. That's what goes for a boot in Lancia's eyes from the 1970s, and even though it does have a spare wheel, it takes up the entirety of the front car. So yeah, as you can see there, so no practicality in the front whatsoever. But where this car does excel is in the way it looks. I love the looks that it's got going on, typical 70s wedge shape, but it's a lot shorter and stubbier than other cars from the time. For instance, it's got an 85.8 inch wheelbase, which is incredibly short. To put that into context, a Mini from the 50s onto the 2000s has only an 80.2 inch wheelbase, which is hardly a large car. So to be less than 6 inches longer than a Mini is incredibly small, and yeah, it kind of shows in the interior, to be honest, as it is quite cramped in here, no doubt about that. Only space for one other person, and even then, yeah, you're pretty much sharing a seat together, because yeah, very minimal amount of room for two people, especially if you're going to be full sized. But the styling by Bertone is amazing, and yeah, the engine is also absolutely glorious. Used a lot better in this car than Ferrari ever used it in their Dino. So it's a 2.4 litre V6, which, as you can see, like the Mini, is mounted transversely to give the car a much stubbier stance. So it's a lot shorter because the engine is mounted sideways, and yeah, produces 190 horsepower and 165 pounds-feet of torque. Now the horsepower in this is slightly less than in the Dino. I think it's about 5 horsepower less, but this weighs less as well at 2,161 pounds. So yeah, incredibly lightweight car, really small, so it's got a great amount of agility to it. It's really nimble, and yeah, with a lack of weight on the go, it feels properly quick, far quicker than the Dino, which yeah, not only due to the extra weight but also due to the way it's geared, it just feels really rather slow and unresponsive, whereas this is anything but. So let's get out onto the open road and see what this car can do. Right, so here we are at the drag strip. So even though it has a decent amount of power, it's not the most powerful of cars going, and therefore it's not the quickest in a straight line. But let's see what it can do nonetheless on this drag strip, and then we'll go on a little bit of an off-road course, and then we'll also go around the track just to show how versatile this car really is. So yeah, it's reasonably quick in a straight line, but obviously it's nowhere near as powerful as the rally version, which had anywhere between 275 and 320 horsepower, while inevitably being a little bit lighter because it's stripped out, and yeah, it's not got any of the minor amount of creature comforts that this does. So yeah, 108 miles an hour, which is fairly decent. Guarantee the Dino would not be as quick as that on the drag strip. So yeah, let's get it out onto its territory where it's most used to, which is going off-road. Now granted, this is the non-rally version, so it's not going to be as good as the rally version was, because it's not got power, it's not got quite the same kind of off-road tyres or anything like that. But as you can see, it's yeah, handling it really rather nicely. It's not bouncing around or anything like that. It's not going to be crashing into the ground because it's got a reasonably high ground clearance, even for this road going version. And yeah, it's got a decent amount of power, but not so much that it's overwhelming the rear wheels to the point that the can't handle the power or the lack of grip on the surfaces that it's dealing with. So yeah, it's really nicely well sorted on these kind of courses. So yeah, and as you can see, slides around nicely, well balanced, doesn't have, you know, a massive amount of torque either to overwhelm those wheels, a decent enough amount, especially given it doesn't weigh all that much at 2,161 pounds, so it doesn't weigh a lot either, so it doesn't really need all that much power. And yeah, nicely high revving as well. Pretty sure the Dino rev to this kind of rev limit of 8,000 RPM, but it never felt as, you know, sharp or as agile or as speedy as this car does in that regard. So let's get to the track and see how it does there. So yeah, I'll just show you the interior on the move. So as you can see, not much in the way of room, but you've got all your important dials right up in front of you. Most important with which is the rev counter. When you're in a rally stage, you're not really bothered how fast you're going, you just care about when it's time to change up into another gear. So that's the most important part. Right. And at the end of the day, this is also a really fun car to drive as well. And despite having the Dino engine, actually sounds good as well, which again, I don't think that's the case really with the Dino. For whatever reason, it just doesn't sound as good. Maybe it's because of how slow the revs come to get to the rev limit. I'm not sure, but yeah, it definitely also sounds better. And on top of all that, looks incredible. Far better than the Dino, which is too busy and too ugly for my taste. So top end of C-Class for this car. And yeah, as you can see, nearly 50-50 weight distribution. Not quite, being a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car, but definitely closer than you might expect for some vehicle from this period. And yeah, the stats are all on the whole fairly good. Speed, handling, acceleration are all solid. Launch is decent, and braking could be better, but it is at the end of the day an early 70s car. Brakes that even back then weren't the best, so yeah, I don't expect them to be all that great, but they are better than certain other cars from the period, and because it weighs so little, it's not got a massive amount of momentum to slow down. So yeah, right, let's listen to the car for a bit of this first lap, and then we'll talk about it some more. So yeah, despite having softer suspension due to it being, you know, based on a rally car, you don't need soft suspension in rally cars, otherwise you'd be crashing and bashing into every kind of surface going. It handles a lot better than you might expect. Yeah, it rolls around a fair bit, but it hangs on in there, and yeah, the mid-engine rear-wheel drive layout suits the car right to the ground, especially due to its short wheelbase. So yeah, on the whole, it's a really good handling car, and again, just shows how versatile this car is, that it can get around a track reasonably quickly, but also go off-road, and yeah, also still be a road-going car that you can use on a day-to-day basis. Granted, not quite as good to use on a day-to-day basis as the Dino, because that's more practical, and yeah, with the way that it's geared and all that lot, it would be better on a typical drive, but this is definitely the better car to drive out of the two. And yeah, it's reasonably quick in terms of acceleration as well. 0 to 16, 6.8 seconds. Go to 0 to 100 in 17.6 seconds, and go to a top speed of 145 miles an hour, which again is really rather quick. And especially quick if we're going to be dealing with rally courses at that kind of speed, and you'd want a car that handles nicely enough to deal with the kind of speeds that you are at, while also dealing with the sharp corners, the tight bends, the rough tracks, and the quick corners that you're going to have going on a rally course as well. So yeah, on the whole, I love this car, and I'm really glad it's been added back into the Forza series, because Lancia, Fiat, Bath and Alfa Romeo were missing from this game in its standard form. So yeah, finally glad to have all 4 car manufacturers back, especially due to the likes of this being added as well, which yeah, really fits into this game, because obviously there are roads to go on, but there are also plenty of off-roads to go on, and yeah, this can do both just fine. So yeah, if you've never tried this car out before, then I would be surprised, but if you haven't, there's no shame in that. Just get out there and try it, because it is a great car, and a classic for every reason that I've pretty much stated. Lightweight, reasonably powerful, good acceleration, decent top speed, and yeah, can handle pretty much anything that you throw at it. So yeah, and on top of everything else, it's got pop-up headlights, so yeah, it's automatically cool just because of that. Nonetheless, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.